Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for
UnSpun.
Well,
Are you surprised at what happened with the midterms this morning? We're doing this early. It's Wednesday. We usually record on Fridays now. We got Remembrance Day. We'll talk about that later. But last night was the big night. Quite surprised, aren't you?
I actually am pleasantly surprised, I might add. And if only with all of like the tightness and the closeness of the races and how historically I was watching MSNBC and CNN and Fox. I'm flipping back and forth. Then I go to CBC, but I got really into what's his name, Steve Kornacki. He does the big board on the MSNBC, and this guy is an encyclopedia explaining
He's no
stuff.
John King, but okay.
I enjoy John King, but I thought, the way
My man crush.
The way is that your man crush?
I just love what he does. It's just so I'm always amazed. Like, how does he do that?
I have to agree with you. Kornacki is very similar to King in that how can you just like point at a county and know everything about it? Like just shocking.
So
but the way they set us up last night to start to consume the results that were coming in early and how the mail-in ballots favor the Democrats. So you're going to see a lead early on that. And then the Republicans will, start to show it. And of course, one of the first reports is always Florida. And what a landslide there. It was like, well, this might actually be a red wave other than the fact, right? Yeah. But the thing that got me, George, and I want your take on this as well, but what I'm seeing as of time of taping on a Wednesday morning where much is still to be solidified with regard to who, is the Trump denialists got smashed. Like, I'm so relieved that Dr. Oz did not win.
I know.
I'm so relieved
that story, and I've been following that one. This is in Pennsylvania. Fetterman, this guy, working class kind of, although he went to Harvard. So, okay, working class he is. But, wears shorts and hoodies. And I was listening to the New York Times piece this week on him. And they were very skeptical that he would be able to pull it off. They thought the debate went terribly. So for those people who don't know, this is obviously American politics we're talking about today, which of course, I kind of get into, but it's all way more complicated in some ways. But Fetterman running for Senate, and in America, you get 2 senators per state. So there's 100 Senate seats, and then the vice president can break any ties. And almost always it seems to be 50-50. And so Fetterman was up against Dr. Oz, and, he had a stroke.
It was from New Jersey. Dr. Oz, who moved in.
He came back. Fetterman had a stroke 2 months into the campaign. Almost died, and obviously has been affected by it. He has some speech issues, some auditory issues and they had a debate, and they had to, have a teleprompter for him to read the questions because he couldn't hear properly or whatever. So people were speculating, I don't know, this guy, do we want this kind of guy going? And Oz was quite cruel to him in the debate. But at the end of the day, the Democrats really I think to me, it's a statement, this guy, Fetterman, in that he's so not slick and so working class, even though he went to Harvard. He represents what I think the Democrats need to start thinking about if they want to keep winning or if they want to push down Trump and his ability, Trump's people, their ability to appeal to this working class, which is really weird that the Republicans are appealing to union guys. This is all backwards. And so this guy, he talked about unions in his speech. This is the kind of person, potentially, as opposed to some of the radical, what DeSantis from Florida kept ranting on his thing about the woke.
He won in a landslide. He won resoundingly, and now it's the battle between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. But and one more thing about we could talk US politics for the whole thing here, but one more that I want to point out is the closeness between the incumbent Democrat Warnock and Herschel Walker in Georgia. It might come down to a runoff between those two to decide who, right? Like it's huge. But at the end of the day, after watching the last not quite 24 hours at the time of us taping this, you almost have to wonder whether Herschel Walker would want a Donald Trump endorsement for the runoff, given the performance of the
Yeah,
Trumpist
that's true.
extremist. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, okay,
I
that's
mean,
good
that,
news for democracy, is my point.
yeah,
Is because I honestly believe that the Trump piece of this puzzle is all about disruption and distraction and sparkly things
yeah.
and trying to like push over dominoes of dumbness, where the others are actually, not everybody's perfect on, honestly,
You're,
like the politics are gross,
no,
but
no. Yeah.
that piece of the politics, the last 6 years, George, is, oh my God, like it's
But
almost,
your cousin JD won though. JD Vance,
yeah,
the author, and he
no
was endorsed.
relation,
I know
no
he was
real,
endorsed by
and he
Trump, and
won
then
by a hair.
I know, and he didn't bring up Trump in his thank you speech. He didn't mention Trump, so
No,
clearly he's looking at it going, oh, okay, because
let's
he
bring it
was,
back,
yeah.
bring it back closer to home. Did you
Yeah.
go to the Orpheum for the?
I did, yes, for
How
the
was it?
inauguration ceremony for Ken Sim and the whole everybody who was elected on council in Vancouver. It was interesting. It was packed. We used to do it at the community center in Olympic Village when I was elected, and at that time, when the first time we did it there, that was criticized for being too elaborate. Because before that, it used to be just down in the chamber at City Hall. This one was at the Orpheum, also a city facility. Probably didn't cost anything, or very minimal. There was no fanciness to it all. It was a stage, but it was interesting. Uh, I mean, he did his cliche about 20 times in his speech, Ken Sim. You can't, what is it? You can't, if you never win, if you don't keep trying. Just like, it's one of these, he made this cliche up. I wrote it down. It's on my phone, but I don't have it with me. Anyways, what was really concerning to me, partly, and I went up to him afterwards, and that the MC was Raymond Louis. Raymond Louis was kind of my nemesis in council,
I remember
and he
that.
and I were, we'd get along outside the council, but in council, he represented what I believed was everything that's wrong with what was happening with Vision. And then to see him invited by Ken Sim to be the MC, and I didn't tweet out anything, and I thought that'd be tacky. I didn't really say anything day of. I kind of held it back because I thought, well, in general, we got to give them a chance. Of course, they have a massive majority; they have a lot to do. But to me, it read wrong, and I think for the people who were very, very disappointed in the way Vision went in the end, and how they were basically destroyed, and they've disappeared off the face of the earth now, really. I don't think it was a good signal to certainly to me, as a voter. I'm going, I don't, and as a former politician who was, consistently and tortured by Vision for 7 years, to see this person who is fine, he's a good MC and all that stuff, works for the development community now, but he is representative of the thing that we thought we'd gotten rid of, and now here he is as an invited MC for the transition there. I don't get it. I don't get the optics of it. I don't get why. What was this about? What's the real story behind this? When we talk about spin and unspinning, I don't understand the logic of why you would do that. But I would imagine maybe in Ken Sim's mind, it's about opening up I want everyone to come into.
Nonpartisan. It's time for partisanship to
Oh,
go
but
aside for making. But that was one of his messages, right? As
yeah, and he
he,
said that to the people who were elected, but Raymond Louis wasn't elected, and he represents something that people don't want to get away from, I think.
right.
And so I don't know. I just was like, oh God, is this Vision 2.0? Is that what we're going to see now? And if it is, then we're not going to see much change in our city, and the pressure is on for
So what
these.
does that mean? Can you unspin for me what Vision 2.0 might look like?
Well, well, certainly pro-development in a big way. Certainly
So when you
lackadaisical.
say
Yeah,
pro-development, because
big development.
when people are talking big development, but does that mean that the expo lands are going to be developed? Does that mean that that some of these things that were supposed to have happened long ago, are going to happen? Or are we talking new big swaths of Vancouver will be suddenly
Right.
covered in towers. It's like, what are we
Well, we already
talking
know the
about?
Broadway plan will go ahead. There's an example of one that may be
Yeah,
controversial and people were upset about, but clearly with the decision to destroy Team and not give Colleen Harbreak that opportunity was a statement from the people that they don't have a problem with Broadway. One, I think it was Sarah Kirby-Young, new re-elected city councilor for ABC, said about specifically the land you mentioned there, the Broadway or the viaducts not coming down, which was something that
right.
I was always concerned about because of the cost. But as far as I know, for her to say that I'm surprised, she would know as well as I know that the real estate deals are very, very complicated down there, and they have been negotiated with very, very specific opportunities for the land that has been, unless the deals were not completed, which had started when I was there. In order for the viaducts to come down, you have all these parcels of land that are owned by several different owners, including the city and the province and private. So you have to, the way we designed it first, and then you have to go and talk to all these people to negotiate. Okay, I need this corner over here, and you need to do this, and we'll give you this money, and you give us that money, you build that. That was all being negotiated when I was there, and I thought those deals had been concluded. Maybe not, but certainly from a legal point of view, I worry that to just make that kind of announcement is a bit, out of step with potentially what's legal.
Yeah.
As
Well,
far as
because it brings us back to last week when we were talking about the north end of the Granville Street Bridge and the taking down of those loops to put in the towers there.
yeah,
So, I feel like we've been talking about the viaducts much longer and more in-depthly and intently. And the Concord Pacific Development area and
mm-hmm.
the areas down there in Plaza of Nations, that for a
Yep.
while was a vibrant place to hold an outdoor event. And now all you see
Yep.
down there is Cirque du Soleil when it comes to town, which is fine. But it's like, I kind of feel
Well,
like
and yeah,
that's a bunch of land that people could actually be living on. Like, what is the holdup? And if people aren't going to build
yeah,
there, put the tiny houses there. Like, come on, people.
and that's why I'm curious to see what happens, because Concord Pacific, I believe, has been basically, not developing anything since the last election because they really couldn't trust the previous council
Right.
for any kind of predictability. They just, most developers, big developers, were feeling that. I think they're looking at ABC, the new party in Vancouver, as should any developer, big or small. They need consistency, they need predictability. They don't want
Right.
erratic behavior, and that's what we've had for 4 years in Vancouver,
We
very
have.
erratic behavior.
Yeah,
So
you're
on
right.
the one hand, that's good that we're going to have a party that controls the government in a massive way, 8 votes, that gives them a super majority. They can make decisions quickly, especially related to real estate. But that also can lead to a perception of a love affair with big developers, because big developers are big developments are obvious. They're literally in your face because they're large, and
Right.
so the obvious assumption then becomes that, oh well, look at them, they're in bed with the big developers.
Back
But
pocket.
if I
Yeah.
were to
Yeah.
narrow down, there are for sure the Concord, that land and the viaducts. I just find it curious that they're saying that when that there's lots to be done down there, and the viaducts need to be fixed. If they're not taking them down, that's going to cost $100 million right there. So I don't know why you would make a statement like that when you've already won the election, but she did, and we'll see. And then there's
You
other areas
mentioned
where you'll see that, but yeah.
you mentioned 100 million. Can we talk about the $5 billion number that was thrown out?
Yeah.
A report that was leaked
Mhm.
from the VPD that it was Romina Dea story on Global that I saw like roll by on Twitter, and the number just jumped off the
Yeah.
page at me. I was like, $5
$5
billion
billion.
in 2020. Whoa, that just how is that? I mean, you and I have talked about it being $1 million a day.
That seems to be the number that we've always heard. Yeah, $1 million a
That
day to manage the situation. And I think includes housing. It includes the healthcare system, everything. So
nonprofits and supports
yeah,
and social safety
all
net. Social safety net was sort of the title of this. Um, but it's
yeah, 5
fascinating.
billion.
Like,
That's right.
but
Yeah, because $1 million a day would be 365 million. So we're talking
right,
10 times that.
10 times that much, which is why I was
So
like, ooh, my eyes came popping out of my
yeah,
head when I saw that. And then I thought, okay, clearly there's more to this story. And immediately the activists and the people that, that are trying their best to help save lives on the downtown
yeah.
east side was like, great. Okay. Now people are going to think
Sarah Bly was one. I think she came
Robin,
tweeted
she
that.
was,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I actually had a conversation with Sarah about it. And she's just like,
Mm-hmm.
why can't we get our David-Eby and Ken Sim to figure this, like get together on the same page? And I was like, you realize that Ken Sim has only just started. Like, So, and David-Eby has yet to be sworn in. So we're hopeful. But how did this land with you in the unspun? Like, obviously, a document like this isn't A, created, nor B, leaked, unless somebody wants
Of
to
course. I mean, the
kick the
show's
nest.
unspun. This is all about spin. This is all about messaging. And Rob Shaw, who writes for BIV now, but also
Yeah,
works on Check with you, he tore it apart. And I
he
recommend anybody
did.
go read that. He just ripped it to shreds. Basically, it's full of BS. It's not, the information is inaccurate and misguided, and it's brutal what he wrote.
I'm going to give you one taste of what he wrote,
Even
because I
a
think,
few things in there, and then I'll explain what's really going on.
okay, because they're like, an Alberta-based help seeker relied on the addresses of organizations in the Canada Revenue Agency charity database to reach its outrageous total of Vancouver and downtown Eastside largesse. And in the process, they captured nonprofits, charities, provide services the entire province. Should never been counted as a Vancouver specific. And I want to give you 2 examples here, 3 actually. Legal Services Society, which is a nonprofit, a legal aid for all of British Columbia. Help Seeker put that entire $105 million province-wide revenue into the number. There's the $78 million in revenue from the Forensic Psychiatric Services Commission, which Help Seeker includes as a Vancouver social safety net expense when it actually runs its regional clinics in Kamloops, Prince George, Surrey, Victoria, Nanaimo, and Vancouver. And one more before this one, there's the Burnaby Search and Rescue Association, which inexplicably gets listed, even though it also runs humanitarian relief overseas. It's like, okay.
As a total number, like they're
Who
taking the
paid for
entire
this report?
revenue
And how
of
much was the report? Like, how much was the report?
this work of fiction, it sounds like, almost. I
Yeah.
think that's what Rob kind of said. It's interesting and it's provocative, and it's now exists, and therefore becomes part of the lexicon
Vernacular.
vernacular of of what it's costing for the downtown east side. This to me was what I would say putting Ken Sim on notice. Because the timing, same week as he's getting inaugurated. I mean, come on. I mean, obviously they leaked this document at the same. I think it was
Purposefully.
the same day as him getting sworn in. This is to say,
Yeah.
you know what, buddy, you got to fix this problem, all of it. And here's, what we're thinking, where we're coming from, and we're going to get the public on our side. In fact, by the way, you just won mayor in part because our union endorsed you, and we believe that you have not, unlike the previous mayor and the majority of council, wanted to cut our funds. You've committed to policing being a priority. Here's the problem. Get a solution together, or we're not going to be your friend anymore. I think that's what this is really saying, and I think it. Something that either Ken Sim and this council need to address 2 ways. They either go, okay, we have to deal with this downtown east side problem, which would be great, but what does that mean? And what does people like Sarah Bly think it means? And what does somebody on the west side of Vancouver? There's different solutions for the downtown east side. Some of them are quite horrible and extreme. And some are do nothing, and then sort of where it's a nightmare. It will be, as I said about the tent city for Kennedy Stewart, and the downfall of Ken Sim if you can't fix this in some capacity. And Ken Sim's strategy and what he talks about is planning and processes and all that stuff. So we'll see if he can make that work. But the other decision that this council then needs to make, I think, is they need to look at the chief of police and go, is this guy really working as a team player here if he's letting this stuff slip out or be released? Is the chief really on our team here? Can we work together with the chief of police? This kind of stuff never happened with the previous chief. And Adam Palmer's a great guy, a nice guy. He was a chief when I left, but he obviously was pushed against the wall with Kennedy Stewart in Vancouver. And he obviously wants to lay the groundwork, or his team or whoever it is behind all this stuff. I can't see how he.
But it seems overt, right? And I think that's what I'm picking up what you're putting down. Like, there's a way to have this phone call and say, you're going to need to make some kind of gesture, overture, point to immediately how that we are getting on this day one. It feels like something didn't happen, or there's some other things at play. I don't know how to put it. It's shady. It feels shady. And again, I don't know if it was purposefully leaked, but you have to assume that somebody either doesn't like the chief, or the chief is really sending a message to the new mayor.
They
So it's
are.
one of those two things, right?
100%.
Because
If
it
I lived
does
in,
make Adam Palmer look bad. It does.
well, yeah. First of all, how did you let this leak, or
Yeah,
why did you pay
exactly.
for this report? What did you pay for this report? I
That.
think it's what's interesting. I think he's probably looked at this council, even though it's ABC. I believe he's looked at this council. They've got you got two Greens, you got one city, so you can't rely on them for your support. Then you have
No.
at least two other previous councillors who were waffling. So you've got five now that are probably not people that you can rely on in a way that I think that the police would like, to be hard, to be tough. And probably six, I would say closer to 6 of the 11 people on that board, if not 7, when I think about them, including the mayor, I don't think are willing to make those tough decisions that I think the police would like them to make. And I think a lot of people in Vancouver will make. I think you will see this council be split on this issue on how to manage a new way forward for the police and policing and dealing with this stuff. I think I'm worried that you probably won't see much change because it'll be hard to make. Who's going to make the decision? And if you don't have the full support of your council, unless that he can make them vote as a block on, which he should be able to do, but I don't know. When I look at it, you got 3. I'm looking at 6 councillors that I think don't want to be hardcore tough on what's going on
Right.
down there. So therefore, that's great for people like Sarah Bly, who's down there on the downtown east side, former park board commissioner, very vocal person, saving lives every day on the downtown east side. And a lot of people who who voted for ABC, who probably were used to be NPA, who would have been John Cooper supporters, and who was very clear in his stand on, no, we got to be tough. Where are they going to
Yeah,
land?
they're like, let's take a bulldozer to the streets with the tents on it.
So
let's clean it up in a day. Where the other side is, don't touch. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of policing, though, I want to touch on this. It's not VPD. One more thing with VPD. Did you see that the rioters from the Lil Baby concert? Remember last week we were talking about the 10 most wanted. They have identified all but 2. So I just want to put out there that having photos of the people doing the thing or video footage actually leads to finding these people and holding them to account. I'm just going to CCTV. I'm going to continue saying that every single chance I get. Because if you're not breaking the law, you wouldn't mind being filmed when in a public place. Like, I just don't get it.
Amanda's family's here. Her dad's here and her stepmom and from England. And I was commenting. I said, I love watching British dramas and British cop shows, right? They're really good. But one thing that is inconsistent to me, or doesn't play in North America, certainly in Vancouver, is every single time they want to solve a crime, and almost always it's the key in almost every crime that's ever solved on a British drama, crime show is, well, let's pull the CCTV footage and see what this says. And they've got cameras, they show driving on the highway, this car, all these different ways that they have ownership of. Here, of course, we don't have that. And we've tried to get that. I know I tried when I was on council to allow it, but we don't. So therefore, they got to patch together all these different pieces of footage from the private sector.
And people, because guess what? We all have CCTV.
I know.
It's right in our hands. It's a thing. So
privacy. Right. So we'll see. I don't see it changing.
I don't think that people should have a privacy issue in high crime situation scenarios or in public places and spaces like they have in Victoria. We had this on the Steel and Vance show last week. They have a robot that they use in Victoria, that's CCTV, that they put into big events, and they warn people days in advance. If you're here, you're going to be on camera. Like, I don't think that surreptitious video recording is necessary in public places. You should put the sign up that says, smile, you're on camera, and we're going to be able to see your license plate number, and we're going to be able to see the sparkle in your teeth, or, the parsley between your teeth. It's not going to be grainy footage where we can't figure you out.
Yeah, some of the footage is pretty impressive these days.
It's pretty impressive. Ring door cameras,
Google,
I have one.
Google and Elon Musk are looking at you from space already anyway, so whatever.
Totally. Can I talk just a little bit about the Surrey Police Services? Because with incoming mayor in Surrey, Brenda Locke, obviously wanting to, she said on election night, the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this, which is a whole big ball of wax. Like, I'm not even wanting to address that. The thing that I saw roll by on Twitter a couple of days ago, big trigger for me. For those who don't know, I've had the online daily harassment for 5 years. Like, targeted harassment at me and coming at my whole life and everything, and have seen it through the police system and all the way through the courts and to a guilty plea, and then sentencing will happen next year because everything takes too damn long. And my goal, as I mention here all the time, is swift and meaningful consequences to people who would do this, because it's garbage. And I saw a tweet roll by 3 days ago now, I can't remember, and it was from Surrey Police Services saying enough is enough. Stop harassing our employees and their families.
Oh, wow.
What is happening? Like, what
These
is
are
wrong
government
with
accountants?
people?
Who are these people? Why would they do that? I don't get it. Like,
I don't get it.
weird.
I don't get it. It's illegal, and they should stop it right now. And I am going to work the rest of my life to make it so that people who would do that, thinking they can get away with it, pay for it.
I know
It's
to
so
bring it full
angry.
circle to how look at what's in the American midterms last night, and one of the main issues they had in the last election, and one of their biggest concerns, and certainly in Arizona, was intimidation of staff people who are trying to just do their job. For God's sakes, that's not how it works. You can't do that to people. They're just like you. They could be left or right wing or whatever.
They're just working. They're working. They're doing their job. I didn't even have my own radio show, and this person attacked me daily, multiple times daily, about what I was talking about on the radio. And then he'd copy in all the people that I had on the radio. It's like, get a life. Why am I taking up so much room in your head? Like, seriously, if you're somebody who would want to attack another human being who you've never met, just don't. How about you just don't? One more thing I want to slip in. Right. We have so little time left, but we'd be remiss because David-Eby is being sworn in as our new premier in British Columbia. And there's an expectation that there might be some shuffling going on.
Yeah, it's true. And I think he's already made some changes to some deputy ministers. He's going to make it his own. So it's going to get ugly, I think, in Victoria. I'll be interested to see who his ministers might be, whether or not some of those key ministers will stay in those positions. He obviously had full support of pretty much the entire current caucus.
Right.
And it'll be interesting. I wonder if there was anybody that he didn't get support from that suddenly is no longer going to be a minister, because being a minister means a lot of extra money. And they're all working them right now to try and get the best gigs. And so it's going to be a shakeup. He has to shake things up because he has to make it his own, because he has to also start thinking about, is he going to call an election in the new year? I think it's appropriate that he does. But he needs to put his own stamp on how he will govern, what his focus will be. He's a different kind of guy than, if you know his history, it's when you talk about CCTV and all that stuff, that's all stuff that he doesn't like.
He was a hell no. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what David-Eby, along with Ken Sim, might come up with in order to manage what is the crisis. Kumbaya. But the crisis, man, 2,000
no more strong
people.
letters, just a lot of hugging.
Oh God.
As Ken Sim said, I'm a hugger. It's like, okay. I look forward to him trying to hug David-Eby, who's 6'8", and I think Ken's my height, like 5'8" or something. So it's like, anyway, I'm gonna give you a hug. Put that
you can find us. You can find us on Twitter. This one is at George_Affleck, George_Affleck on Twitter. I'm at Jody Vance, Jody with a Y, Vance on Twitter, and we're always trying to bring you the clearest, most fact-based. And for anybody watching right now, I'm going to show you what I've been doing for the last number of days. If you've noticed that I kind of sound like I got a snotty nose. I'm COVID negative. I've been testing myself for 5 days. Thank you very much. I sound like crap, but what am I supposed to do, George? Do I have to stay home now? I'm 5 days into.
You sound like one of the Kardashians.
Oh, I sound like a Kardashian. But do I have to stay home now? Like, is that I've stayed?
No, apparently not. I mean, I had a friend who just flew back from Toronto and she had COVID, and she called them and they said, just wear a mask. Nobody cares anymore.
Right.
Nobody cares.
But I'm testing negative, and this is my 5th test, so I don't know. Do I trust this now?
Yeah, you don't have COVID. You just got a cold.
My kid had a cold.
Remember those things? Colds?
Right.
What a concept. Hey, we're both wearing our poppies. Friday's Remembrance Day. I'll be heading down to the Cenotaph in Vancouver. I go every year. My mom was a veteran. Really important to me. Do your thing. Respect people that serve for us. When you talk about service, as we were earlier, talk about service when you go to war to keep your country free. And what we saw happen in America this week, and hopefully mostly positive as opposed to negative. Freedom and what those people did for us in the First and Second World War and other wars. Give them total respect on Friday, everybody. I know I will.
Lest we forget, we pause at 11:11 a.m. on Friday to give a moment to our veterans and to those who have fought for our safety, even up till and including today. Thanks, George.
Thanks. We'll see you next week.